Bye-bye.
Bye.
Right, so yeah, I will turn it over to Brian to get us started.
Okay, well, hello everybody. My name is Brian Loma. I'm owner operator of Cut to Plastic EMS. I got into the environmental responsibility in an interesting way. I quit my insurance career in my mid-30s because I learned about plastic pollution in the ocean, microplastics, and in Lake Michigan. And so I ended up in Colorado because water law is very interesting here, and happen to have some family here as well, so that helped, definitely. But Colorado is the only state where the water only comes in through the sky, not through other states. And so we're like an island in that way. I've had a fun history of working on ballot measures in an environmental responsibility at the state and community levels, and municipal level. The biggest one I've worked on that passed was Waste No More regulations to bring recycling and composting infrastructure to Denver. And I think it was really a large part due to EcoCycle, putting that ballot measurement together with activists in Denver that allowed for our state's enhanced producer responsibility laws to get passed, because it was the stage and the steps, the blueprints of showing that we could pass it amongst the voters. And so currently, I also got to work with my friend Josh here on 112 for Colorado Rising, which, most expensive ballot measure in the state. But it got us to a place where we're starting to have regulations in the oil and gas industries. So currently, I'm under contract with Green Latinos as one of the things that I'm doing. We're working on a multi-stage plan that includes understanding and making comments and helping to guide the process of enhanced producer responsibility in the state to ensure that the producers their feet are kept to the fire, right? Our state laws say that we have to reduce greenhouse gas emissions. We have to become waste divergent communities. And so I'm sitting at that table, and I'm very excited to be there after a decade plus, a little bit more, of switching. So my life currently focuses on public comment, education, and what is the future of recycling and public responsibility look like in the state, and producer responsibility. So it's not going to be the neighborhoods and the communities that pay for it. It's going to be Pepsi and Walmart and Costco and Coors and anybody who manufactures and sells more than $5 million a year in our state. To bring that into reality, though, we have to take smaller steps and smaller bites of things. So the other major aspect that I'm working on right now is teaching, and I'm building a coursework right now so that we will walk hand in hand with businesses in the food service industry to help them apply current health laws and product packaging laws and what the future is going to look like. The state of Colorado banned styrofoam sales in the state of Colorado for restaurant and food industry as of the first year. Major chains had to change by the 1st of July. By the end of the year, all small restaurants are no longer supposed to use styrofoam and food papers and all that contain PFAS and contaminants. And businesses don't know how to make those changes and how to do it in an equitable way that allows them to be ready for the next set of regulations, which is composting infrastructure, right? So that when you go to the festivals and the events, your package is 100% compostable. The compost streams are clean, and the soil can be used in our farmlands for water retention and bringing nutrition back into the soil, densifying soil. It has to start one step at a time. And so I'm really pleased and excited to say that I'm at that crossroads where the laws have been laid down, the product regulations that people know what's what, and the will of the people has been laid out there. Today I sat in a meeting where they talked about moving from households and apartments and houses having recycling access to the festivals are going to have it, and the businesses starting in 2028. Right? You got to figure all these rollouts out. So yeah, I'm very excited to be at that crossroads right now.
EcoCycle is kind of in the middle of this. Like we're kind of doing anything that feels like zero waste. EcoCycle is like, yeah, we could do that. We could probably work on that. So EcoCycle has been around since 1976. If you are not familiar with our organization, the building we're sitting in right now, the Boulder County Recycling Center, is an example of a really cool local governmental and NGO, nonprofit partnership. So EcoCycle back in 1976, you were around, you might remember the school buses that were driving around the county. We had these repurposed school buses that just was like the Girl Scouts, like the mayor, like whoever is on duty that week is like helping their neighbors pick up their recycling. And that was the first of its kind in Colorado. We were the first program, community program to come to Colorado, one of the very first in the nation. And so, we built from there as Boulder County's recycler to what you see today. Like we were sorting stuff in, a parking lot, like by hand, and now we have, I don't think we can go upstairs today, but if you get a chance to come on a tour, ask me or Chandra if you see her around, because we're doing tours. But now we have lasers and like robots and all this crazy stuff up there. But then also, as an organization, like we're a recycler, which is unique for a nonprofit. There's only 4 major recyclers who are also nonprofits in the U.S., and we're one of them. We have a little coalition with them. So that's unique, first of all. But we also, first and foremost, are a natural resource conservation and climate change motivated organization. So that's we're recycling because recycling makes so much sense. It's such an important and crucial way for us to be keeping these valuable things out of our landfills and keeping food waste from causing more methane and keeping plastics out of the ocean. Like there's all these things that are coming together to make recycling make sense. But as EcoCycle, we're like, if we went out of business as a recycler because we just rethought everything to be reusable, redesignable, repairable, and we just didn't even, we were all just drinking out of, this is great, zero waste event, but if we all, had, this didn't even exist and we just everything was reusable, that would be our ideal. Like we would love to be fired as recyclers because that's what we made happen. And so, we do your regular recycling. We also do the Center for Hard to Recycle Materials, the Charm in partnership with the city. We have a lot of great governmental friends around here in Boulder County. And so my coworker Avery over here is working in the Charm. I don't want to put you on the spot, but I'm sure.
I can say something.
Sure, yeah. You want to talk about the Charm for a second?
What exactly about Charm? Just when we take what we are.
Yeah, maybe just a 1 minute thing
Sure.
about the Charm.
60 seconds. Yeah, we are the local hard to recycle facility. So we take lots of things that have some recycling solution in one way or another that can't go in your normal recycling bin, right? So the big things we take are styrofoam, plastic bags, scrap metal, unfortunately, because there isn't another local option that's good for reasons. Also electronics, wires. We take some things that are an additional fee, so refrigerators, mattresses. Those are the big things. Also some glassware, some compost. We take fabric extinguishers, shred paper, because compost isn't on shredded paper anymore, so there's different ways that needs to be done. We aren't processing much of that material. We're mostly just a drop-off point, but we're a big drop-off point. We're big staffed. We help people understand what they have so that the bins aren't getting super polluted with other things. We want a lot more drop-off facilities everywhere because that's sort of, in terms of the logistics of moving material to the places that actually process everything, that's one of the most important aspects that need to be, we need a lot more of those facilities. I can go into more things. I've been working here since October. Is that good?
That was perfect. I just didn't want to tell the Charm story.
We're a bunch of bins and people who will tell you which things go in the bins, and we make the bins such that we can send them to places that actually process things. So instead of in your cardboard box in your car, it's in a palletized going in.
Yeah, it's hard work and it's good stuff. And yeah, so back in 2001, we had these hard to recycle events that would be, different cities would put on an electronics day, and so EcoCycle Classic, we're always like, is someone not doing it? Okay, well, we'll try to do it and see if like we can do it, and then someone can take it from there. So the charm was one of those where we were like, okay, well, people are just holding onto their hard recyclables all year round until they like have an event, if they have access to an event. So what if we just had a place where they could drop off their stuff? And so now, you know, we do a lot of kind of exportation of anything we do. So we do a lot of like working with other communities to figure out how they can, you know, build a charm, and we partner with folks like Gridwell. Like we're all about the more the merrier in the HTR world, and so that's something we do. We also work on composting because we don't process the composting, but because it's like in our umbrella of zero waste and our mission, we're like, sure, we'll take on that. So we work on some compost education. We do some advocacy, some infrastructural work, and then a lot of what we've been doing in the last few years is legislative stuff and infrastructural, like regulatory stuff. So you know, we've been you know, working in the community in all these different aspects since 1976. Whatever. Thank you. And you know, so we've been working on the scales of like zero waste events and like having goalies and working in the schools, working with businesses, working, you know, with local governments. And so now, you know, I'm sure maybe we'll talk about this, like maybe this will be where the conversation goes, but just in the past, you know, handful of years, the ability to make progress with plastics legislation has just like, it's so fun now to work on plastics. It's like, yes, people want to talk to us about it, and like legislators want to talk to us about it, and like all of these different partners in the community like are like on the exact same page, and like we're ready to do it. So yeah, some notable regulations or pieces of legislation that we've worked on in the past however many years. So yeah, Plastic Pollution Reduction Act, so that was the polystyrene one, but also the plastic bag one. So that was like, you know, when China closed its doors and we had this huge national tumult in the recycling world, this was one of the examples of like, oh, we see that we have this huge pile of crap, it's polystyrene, what are we gonna do about it? Then we were able to be like, oh, let's legislatively cut it off at the source. We can see it's a problem that's piling up. Yeah, EPR, so instead of producer responsibility, this is something that we've been trying to do for decades. Just like, hello, we should not pay for it, the Pepsi should pay for it, obviously. The front range waste diversion bill, which, you know, here in Colorado we're bad at recycling to a large extent because it's cheap to landfill here. So that was, you know, make it a little bit more expensive to landfill and then take that money and put it toward waste diversion. The organics management plan. So we're talking about how we have all this organic waste, how are we going to deal with it on a statewide scale, and along with that, the truth in compostables labeling bill, which is about getting contaminants out of that stream. So I could go on for so much longer, but I will stop myself there. EcoCycle, to sum it up, we have all these great friends and partners in the community who are like working on different parts of zero waste, and we're kind of like, zero waste, we'll try to get in there, and we've been doing it for a long time, and we'll continue doing it, and we're really happy to be, I know most of you in this room and you all are experts on zero waste, I absolutely know that, so I'm really happy to be in a community that's like so ready to take action. I'll stop.
Hey everybody, I'm Shannon. I am a disabled Army veteran and retired entrepreneur. I sold my business in 2017 and I was fully intending on retiring and going off into the sunset. Right around 2014, I had some major health issues that caused me to rethink my own connection to food and kind of had to do some big interventions in my life in order to basically not die. I was 1 foot in the grave. My doctor was basically telling me, hey, you need to either change your habits or put your affairs in order. I got out of that situation, and a lot of my friends were not so lucky. And I got into the food justice movement because I recognized that we were at an inflection point as a society. And we are heading off a cliff. Climate change is something that I think everybody is aware of. I'm taking this to a macro level now. 35% of all the climate change causing greenhouse gases are coming from our food system. And our system is not set up for any level of sustainability, nor does it look like it's going to go in that direction anytime in the near future. This is a problem. folks like you recognize that this is a problem. And these are the folks that I've been talking to for the last decade. So I'm coming to the table as somebody who has got military government logistics experience and entrepreneurial experience. I've built my own small businesses, I've sold them successfully. I've been in a lot of different fields of revenue generation and how to put together a successful business model and how to create a sustainable model and how to tie that into community efforts. This is all part and parcel of the type of business that I've been operating ever since I got into the industry. So we have some specific problems that we're dealing with and we haven't really figured out solutions for. One of them is food deserts. Food deserts are defined as any place that can't support a supermarket. To break it down to its simplest logic. Those areas, if you happen to live in them and don't have a car, it is nearly impossible to get to healthy food. This, amongst many other factors, is driving our obesity epidemic nationally and threatening to bankrupt our country. A lot of you are aware of all of this. On the food waste side, we have an entire category of food that we're not allowed to touch. Prepared meals, restaurants, hospitals, schools, so many different sources of prepared meals that if we were to have a system in place that was capable of redirecting it back into the community, it would be nearly as large as our existing food bank system. That's how big of a problem that is. And because we don't have a system in place to deal with that food, it's ending up in our landfill, where it's contributing methane emissions to the climate crisis and literally cooking our planet. There's a lot of other types of food that we don't even really pay attention to, like backyard produce, estimated at about 1.5 million pounds of food per 500,000 people per year in every city in America. It's yard waste, because if you're a senior, or if you have disabilities, or if you just don't have the time, you're not going to harvest that food. And no matter what, you're not going to be able to find something to do with that food before it goes bad, because we don't have systems in place to deal with it. So I started a public benefit company 2 years ago. I moved to Colorado in 2021. And the next year I started a public benefit company for the purpose of creating a business model that would allow us to create a sustainable system to tackle these types of problems in the market, in the system that we all exist in, that we all have to figure out a way to make work. And along the way, every part of my strategy, 100% of it, has been talking to folks in the community. Folks who have spent their entire lives, in some cases, working to solve these challenges. And I'm listening to everybody's needs. I was listening to Verity when she was talking about how New Foods needs more people walking through the door. Well, we can create a business model that helps to solve that problem. So if you have a large-scale warehouse facility that's supporting a series of small grocery stores that are focused on pantry staples and dry goods that don't go bad and don't have to constantly get thrown away in your community, a place where people can get healthy food staples in their community. If you got that warehouse in the back end handling the logistics, so you can break down large deliveries into smaller bits, you can start purchasing at levels where you can bypass wholesalers. You can communicate directly with suppliers, with producers, with farmers, with the community that we're all trying to support on the other side that everybody tends to forget. Now we're starting to create these connections in the community and starting to work towards a resilient food system. By focusing on food waste and food access and creating a cohesive whole, we can even incorporate really large-scale crazy stuff like biodigesters that can allow us to take all that food waste plus cow manure and lawn scraps and pretty much anything we throw at it into good compost. And because we're putting it through a process that actually makes sense, we're able to capture the methane emissions that are being produced by these processes and compress them and clarify them and put them back through the utilities and use them to run our operations. So these are the types of efficiencies I hope to bring to the table. And along the way, we continue talking to folks like Rosie, like Brian, like Ambra, for government intervention, for outreach and policy, for operations, and really being on the ground and understanding how to make these things work. And I'm talking to, people all over the community that are excited about the fact that we finally have a real plan on the table to put all of these things together. Sorry, I get a little emotional sometimes. But I'm really excited to be here at the table with you guys today. And I think we're finally starting to put together the voices that we need to really make progress in this fight.
Great. Well, it was wonderful to hear all your backgrounds and just some of the cool work that you guys have been working on lately. So, I thought that I would start this off with just some common waste myths, and maybe that will, trigger us to talk about some other things. A couple other things I wanted to talk about, which I think Rosie you touched on, was just like policy. And then Brian, I'm sure that you can, add some of that too. Food justice, and then just compost changes in Colorado and impact. So those are like kind of just some areas. I'm hoping we can get to quite a few of these, but I guess we'll see which direction it takes us. And please, if you have any questions at any time, feel free to interject, because we're here to to learn from these experts. And so feel free to ask your questions. So one of the, and this could be for any or all of you, one common myth: Colorado's geography doesn't create challenges for waste reduction.
Does or does not?
Does not. It's a myth. So I guess if you want to talk about what are some of the challenges that I guess just the geography of Colorado create.
The biggest one is you have to create separate systems. I mean, if you're in Nebraska or pretty much any state where you've got flat lands and you can work logistics across from one side of the state to the other, you don't really have a challenge, right? But we've got the Rockies right in between. So it's almost like you have to create separate customized solutions for both sides of the state. And that really makes it hard to scale.
It's really spot on. For the last 2 or 3 months now, the Colorado Circular Action Alliance has been hosting public service, like public information and input meetings. And when we look at what the enhanced producer responsibility is going to do, it's refunding the haulers so that their work is paid for, so that the recycling at your home is not your payment, it's not your government's payment, it's Pepsi's payment, right? It's tied all together. So they have a recommended rate scheduling for the mountains, plains, the Front Range, and the West Slope that separates it. And waste hauling can be 3 times as expensive in the mountains than it will cost us on the Front Range or the Plains states, because of that difficulty of, there's thousands of square feet in compact mileage, ranges up and down, twisty. So it's definitely an issue.
Yeah, the only thing I would add is what I touched on earlier, which was just like geographically, because recycling is often framed as like an alternative to landfilling, which it's not really the point. It's like about conserving all of these resources upstream rather than like caring about where it goes necessarily. But because we have this like it's an alternative to landfill lens, then in the West when we have these states where we have just a bunch of space, then we're really legislatively and infrastructurally and economically disincentivized to be investing in recycling, because 7 years ago, before we had all this legislative momentum, when we were talking to legislators about this kind of thing, they're like, no, oh wait, we should be importing other states' trash because we have so much landfill space out here. So that in itself, people are so shocked to hear about Colorado's recycling rate, because they're like, but everybody here gets it. People, we're outdoorsy, we're culturally, and it's this, this kind of market fake, pricing phenomenon that's really been a hard obstacle to get over. And then also exactly what Brian said, people really tend to think about recycling as even folks when they think they've invented something recyclable, they're like, it can be melted down and turned into something else, and that's what recycling is. And we look at an example like glass, where it's so easy to melt glass and turn it into something else, but if you go up into the mountains, you're probably not gonna be able to recycle glass simply because of that transportation and geographic obstacle. Like, physically, you can turn glass into something else really quickly, but it's so much more about like, okay, how is it gonna get to point A to point B? Who's gonna pay for it? Glass is really, really heavy, so that's why it's really hard to truck around, and then we start kind of focusing on the wrong ways to get at things. We really, like, yeah, we need to be talking to haulers, we need to be talking to, their union, like, there's so many different pieces that are really defining what's getting recycling, in addition to like, can you squish it and turn it into something? It's like really geographically, influenced.
Can I add to that, maybe steal one of your myths, that it doesn't get recycled? Is that on your list?
Yes. Mhm.
Perfect, so let's roll right
Okay,
in.
yeah.
Because, that problem that you just said, who's gonna pay for it? The answer has changed in the state of Colorado. The answer is that the company that you're buying from, that does more than $5.5 million worth of business in the state annually, they're now paying, the expectation is, if you're gonna do business in Colorado, you're gonna pay for our waste diversion. And that factually is supposed to start in 2026 statewide, with the companies producing the materials starting their next year, here's your first year, calculating how much is going into the system, so their fees can be charged, so that when 26 happens, the rollouts are happening. So the great and exciting news, let me finish the sentence, is that everybody who gets at-home trash service, wherever you are in rural Colorado, or in metropolitan, or in an apartment building, will be getting funded waste diversion.
So, I wanted to ask about that. So the Producers Packaging Responsibility Act, is that right?
It's called Enhanced Producer Responsibility.
Okay, yeah, so the question is, so I understand that, like, depending on the packaging for my product, a number of factors that go into that, I'm gonna pay a certain fee, and that goes into a fund that's going to fund a number of things, and I guess my question is, will part of that money go to fund infrastructure and state-of-the-art recycling like we have in Boulder
Yes.
County and other parts of Colorado?
The answer is amazingly yes.
So maybe we don't need to haul it as far,
So
right?
we're not only not need to haul it as far, but on Friday this week, this building is hosting the annual meeting for Recycle Colorado, the statewide recycling coalition. And there's infrastructure changes that are happening. So in Pueblo, there's going to be a massive collection facility where materials can be trained in, and they're looking at how do we get them from mountain towns. We have, and the fact is it recyclable, right? Right in your Broomfield has like the state's recycling facility, and they can quadruple the amount of glass they're currently receiving and still not run 24 hours a day. And the demand is there for the glass. The aluminum can in the state of Colorado recycled is back on the shelf on average for 30 days. From the time it hits the recycling bin to the time it's back on the shelf. And those are the standards, right? But you see plastics, we stopped sending them overseas and we started building infrastructures. So we have two major companies, two major players in the state of Colorado, Direct Polymers and Driven Plastics. And Driven Plastics takes plastic bags, the bread bag, the t-shirt bag that we stopped using for our groceries, and they turn them into a material for the road. And then, because of this, all the state mandating that they're doing it, there's also like, products have to start being made with post-consumer content. And so there's this whole shift that you were like, this is the struggle we're facing, to here's where the answers are coming, right? And so, just like Shannon, it's got this amazing, like, let's save the food, diverted from the landfill into people's bellies. Now we're solving a whole bunch of solutions, right? Because we're diverting it from compost farming if we can. But if we can't, we're gonna turn it into soil again. So it's being diverted, so it's going away from the landfill, right? But with the intentionality of capturing your food, businesses are getting tax breaks, right? So they got motivation going on, right? Now, the companies that make our stuff have motivation to change their packaging from a complex scheme where you gotta figure out 20 different items, what is and isn't, and how much of it is hard, to a mandate that the harder your stuff is to recycle, the more it's gonna cost you to introduce it into our state. And there's eco modulation as part of that. That says, we're gonna phase out stuff that's impossible and toxic and bad for us, right? So Colorado's on a pathway, and by 2035, the expectation is that we have taken a significant shift in funding the composting, funding the recycling, and getting everybody at every location, right? Every venue that's under $10 million in annual sales might have fully funded recycling provided for them.
So $10 million is the cap where they should start using these kinds of. Because my thought was, okay, what about the small breweries or the small facilities that they also have to implement this rule now? So basically the cap is $10 million.
I think it's five minutes.
So
Oh, minimum.
the minimum business, your business, if you're a manufacturer, if you make the aluminum, if you make the boom boxes or the speakers or whatever it is, if you sell more than $5 million a year in the States, you have to pay into their cap share. And this is only packaging products at this point. The soap bottle, the aluminum can, the box of cereal, all that kind of stuff. It also includes compost streams, right? But what you have up here at the table is a representation of not only the struggle, but the solutions that we've said we're tired of it, and we're gonna shift, right? At the end of World War II, to reduce the size and power of the federal government, we stopped national recycling programs, right? So the people have gotten, 70, 80 years down the road, we're getting back to this place where like, why are we throwing all this food away, right? People are dying in the streets of hunger. Let's feed them, right? And doing it at a scale, how many was that restaurant or that place in Vegas you were just telling me about?
Oh, yeah, so MGM, sorry, yeah, this, what he's talking about is 8 years ago, 3 Square, which is the food bank down in southern Nevada, this is exciting news. They collaborated with the MGM Grand Resorts, which is, I don't know, the largest casino magnate group ever. And they started using this technology called a blast chiller to safely rescue this food from the conventions and from the buffets. So we're talking scale, we're talking big Vegas casinos, right? And so they started with one donor property, and now they're worked up to over 20 properties, and they just celebrated their 5 millionth meal rescue since 2016, and that's with 2 years off from COVID because all the conventions were closed. So that strategy is the one that we're working to bring into Colorado and to basically use as the core for the food rescue model. And then essentially build all of the other things that we can possibly put together. It's just like what you're doing with the recycling is like, what else can we do with this? Like how much impact can we possibly make by incorporating this and this and this and this and putting it together? We're just saying the same phrases, it's great.
Right? But think about buffet meals, hotel pans at the end of the night. You've been to the buffet, right? Think about how much do they cook that it doesn't get served? Well, 10 years ago it was landfill, right? Now we're at the precipice of saying it's a tax break because you spend money on it and you need to reclaim in the cost of your business. So by donating it, because Good Samaritan laws that also passed, that allow you to donate it when you store it properly, you can process it, get a tax break, feed more people, reduce methane gas emissions from the landfill, because tons of food a month can be diverted and consumed.
Do you have an estimate on how much, like in Colorado, might be?
So Denver and Vegas are the same size, about 2.5 million people. So if you just go apples to apples and you look at the fact that they haven't even scratched the surface of Vegas yet. They're literally at 20 properties right now. They're just operating
But
on the
like,
strip, they're only one after casinos.
Tons or like estimate like how much could be diverted?
I mean, we'd have to do a study to get exact tonnage. I mean, we'd have to talk to them. I mean, they've been doing it for 8 years, so let's collaborate and start working with these other nonprofits and actually having these discussions. Because it's been going on and it's been in the news and we know what's happening. have the back end stuff from them, so we can share this stuff.
5 million meals.
But the
Pounds a
thing is,
meal?
A year.
5 million meals since 2016, but they're accelerating the program. So
Okay.
they're expanding, they figured out how to put a blast trail in our trucks, and now they've got a mobile pickup capability. I mean, more is happening, it's continuing to expand. The problem is it didn't make it out of the state until I took notice and went, wait, why hasn't anybody heard of this?
Right.
And just started, hey, we need to amplify this solution, we need to replicate this in a way that makes sense to Colorado. Because the thing is, we don't have the giant casinos here, we've got different issues. And so we've got to reformulate this and again, you know, kind of bring it through the lens of a business situation that allows us to be able to interact with the market. We've been having conversations about technologies that will allow us to track the food so granularly that it doesn't even necessarily have to stay in the donation side. We can put it back into the market and use that to fuel the operations. There's a lot of things that we can do where we can really kind of create hybrid programs where even the nonprofits are running LLCs and are running profit mechanisms that they can allow them to, you know, maybe step away from dependence on grants, as an example.
Right? We're basically going from where EcoCycle started in many things, right? We're gonna go get the stuff from you that you're not able to have access to and build that plastic and glass and aluminum system. So now the plastic companies are saying, milk run, we're gonna go get this hard to recycle stuff. Now we're able to go chase after the food and in the vehicle before it even gets from the restaurant into the vehicle, and maybe at the end of the day, that food is ready to be donated. And everything then left the truck, right? I mean, those systems of preservation, so it's growing. It's all at this convergence.
Mhm.
And I love that this state is so ready to receive these things. Coming from Nevada, I was not expecting this. So just the 3 years I've been here, it's been very cool.
Rosie, did you have anything else to add?
The only thing that I could add to the diversion statistic question, the loose statistic that I use is about half of any given landfill is organics. So just in itself, like thinking about if, okay, if we could take, I mean, organics is largely food waste, it's also, you know, yard waste, other stuff. But if we could take organics out of a landfill, then not only would all of our landfills have twice as much space, which is huge just in terms of building landfills, but also then we wouldn't have these methane emissions that we see from landfills, which is huge. It's not negligible. You know, it's a big portion of our man-made methane emissions in the state. And then also, then we could take that organic material and not only, you know, feed hungry people with what's edible, but also, you know, turn what's not into the soil amendment, which then can not only return nutrients to the soil, which helps us grow new healthy food, but also has this carbon sequestrative ability that, you know, potentially can draw down 3 times more carbon than trees, like this, just if we're applying it to soil. So it's like really this, I just always say, like with recycling, it's like it makes no sense not to do recycling, but recycling is not the like solution to all of this. When we talk about getting organics out of the landfill and turning it into, you know, food and compost, like that is literally, like that is black and white. It's so, it has to happen. It's like absolutely, right now these organics are contributing to a problem, and if we can get it right, it can contribute only to a solution, which is like so exciting. And if like we can get all this infrastructure and money and participation in order, then it's like we can see these, you know, methane changes in front of our eyes. Like we can see some really tangible, like direct climate solutions in front of us, and it's like exciting that literally the state has said, like, I, the state, am proclaiming that we all have to figure out what to do with organics, and that's a bill, and like that's, here we are, now we get to decide how we're gonna do it.
Yeah, and with the organic diversion method, yes, we're talking 5 to 7 years, before we will see like a quick, right? Because it takes 5 to 7 years for that organics to decompose. It's not like 40 years, 50 years. It's like quick in the lifetime of the landfill.
All right. I think I'll switch over to compost changes in Colorado and impact. So one quick question, where do plastic recyclables go in Colorado? And are there any materials that stay in Colorado, like full cycle? or does everything get sent out to the state?
Yeah, I mean, this is.
Right.
Yeah. So, again, we have two major companies recycling different types of materials in the state. And we have some of that is being captured and leaving the state. TerraCycle makes planks, if I remember correctly, amongst other things like decking and other products. And that material, what?
Tracks.
Trex.
Trex is the main LD.
Yeah.
Yes. Trex. So Trex is making like wood 2x4s, decking, things like that. That's out of state. But there are programs that are growing right now. Soon we anticipate that Colorado will be building massive infrastructure pieces in the future of our transportation systems, both roadways and railways, with hard to recycle plastics. And as you know, we're in Boulder. Where's the train from Denver to Boulder? Well, there's a national look at using Colorado and Denver Metro for the pass-throughs on national lines. We have a statewide mandate. That's another topic though. The answer is that plastics are recycled in Colorado. And well, I think it's Coke that is already planning to move to DIA, Coca-Cola, and their new facility will be able to process used plastics, wash and process them, and integrate them into new beverage containers on site to make bottles that are, I think it's like 70% post-consumer product for a beverage container. So the localized recycling is a reality, but it's only one part of the solution, right? You said composting. So when we are diverting our materials from our food waste, we're capturing plastics out. This course that I'm working on with Surfrider Foundation right now, under the contract with the Green Latinos, is to literally teach restaurants and food trucks how to go from styrofoam and PFAS and non or hard to recycle materials in their food stream to a 100% organic diversion methodology, so they can become certified and qualified to work at festivals and events where compost streams are going to be mandated or incorporated, right? It's not going to happen overnight. Boulder and a lot of risks, being the first to mandate compostables.
I'm just curious how the certification attestation part works.
Certification, so what we're working on is, Surfrider has an ocean-friendly restaurants program, and actually today, they announced their rollout of ocean-friendly hotels. So the idea is that the food service industry, to get certified, to be on the Surfrider website and advertise and certified and all that jazz, they're going plastic-free. They're going to reusables or single-use on demand, right? And so that's like, I am telling you I need a straw because I have a cleft palate or something, and they have washables, or maybe, they've limited straws so much, they have plastics they're using until the paper ones come in, things like that, right? But they're converting everything. They're taking an integrated look at the front of the house consumption at the consumer level and eliminating. And then additionally, looking at back of the house options. Now, this is a pilot that we're developing. This is really, again, just like EcoCycle and just like the food systems hackers, right? We're starting something to create that shift and make it an applicable change that has a long haul impact on methane emissions, on waste consumption. And again, remembering that our populations are growing, right? So we want to reduce the amount of waste we create while the population grows, right? So here's the line. 20 years from now, we have this many people, but our waste has gone down to this level, right? So these are all brand new options. We're forging ahead. And so what I see is a BPI certification, the the technical AS, TM 3600, there's a couple others. Materials have to be tested to be non-toxic and eliminating contaminants, chemicals, but also be certified to break down in a commercial compost facility within 180 days at 90% breakdown. Technical stuff, right? So if a business goes to 100% compostable for their food product, and then like in Denver County, we passed Waste No More. I was the co-director of that ballot measure. That 72% of Denver voters said yes, everywhere we go, we want recycling and composting, right? That again was the precursor to PCR. And so Denver, if you want to be a food truck at special events, and the law says that the special event permit holder has to have compost service, and the compost hauler won't take your compostables if it's full of single-use plastics, then you have to build that package to get rid of the ketchup packet, to put everything in pumps, no single-use ramekins in a compostable box with a black plastic fork that's wrapped in a plastic bag, right? All layers. So you gotta eliminate the point source contamination where it's at. And then your events, everybody's working in cohesion, right? Because the unconsumable food waste will end up in the compost stream. But when all those food trucks go back to the commercial kitchen at the end of their shifts at midnight, 1 o'clock in the morning, right now what they're doing is they're landfilling the waste. They're not even 90% of the time, they're not even throwing it in the compost bin for organic conversion. So when you get your last chiller into the commercial kitchen and they can pick it up the next morning for donation to the food bank or the homeless shelter or the senior center, right? Because that's the inclusiveness of this. We can take that food that was in hotel pans and we can go feed it to people on another scale, including a buffet line where people are residents at a facility or whatever it might be. And so now we're giving the business a tax break because they're getting credits for what they're doing with Shannon's program.
Well, and may I add, we're taking it even farther than that, because this situation with the food deserts actually gives us, once again, a really big opportunity to open up a new market into an underserved community. So this has been the gold standard of where we're trying to go as a society, is how do we get food to everybody that needs that food, right? So because the grocery stores have largely advocated those communities for generations, we now can go in there and we can provide a different model. And the model that we've chosen is essentially bulk commodity food. So pantry staples, you go to the bulk bin section of any grocery store that's still offering them, everybody knows what that looks like. You go through and you fill your own containers. You do whatever the process is. We've got compostable bags that can be put out so that everything in there is compostable. And then by capturing it upstream, we're really kind of reintroducing a new model where we're not introducing the waste into the stream in the first place. Now we're starting to be proactive about kind of changing consumption habits. And we're doing it in those communities that are historically having the biggest problem with it. You know, we're not getting a lot of recycling out of poor underserved communities. We don't have a lot of a single stream in place. A lot of people just don't care about it because it's just a candy wrapper or whatever's going on. So by putting these systems in place at that level and really giving people an opportunity and a choice to make those decisions differently, we can start to kind of push back on this whole conversation and really move things in a different direction.
Now, my point is, for example, what is happening right now, she was very brave when I say, hey, we are really struggling. This is we are like in a decision that we are closing, we are opening, we need people, and she's doing her best. So my thing is, those business models that actually are already on the set, already on Boulder, why the county or the government does have like a special grant, a special incentive to basically support during this stage that they are struggling right now, how they can support it. So my thing is, we are all talks about, yes, this is what we have to do. Okay, she's already on the business, she has established, she has a great business model. Why she may have like a possibility to have a brand or even for advertisement. So basically people will know where she's located. I mean, those kind of things I believe the ones that they have. I am the director of the Beach Festival. We have 35,000 people. We ask, hey, we are a non-profit organization like the Chamber of Commerce. We don't have funds to do everything that has to do with compost, and actually we would love to have the legal zero, if it's possible, or any other company, just to use the recycling plastic.
Reusables.
Yeah, and they say, no, there is no fund, there is nothing. I say, hey, at least they have, because I maybe can find a sponsor. There was no answer, there was nothing. So my point is, we are a festival that brings a lot of people. We have like 9,000 balls of compostable that we would love it to have it just in plastic and then wash it. There was no support from anyone.
That's difficult, and it's frustrating.
I understand, that's why I'm like,
I'm,
Can I lay out a scenario real quick? This is an opportunity, because New Foods has an amazing model, and just about everybody in the room knows who that is, right? So you go in there and they've got that package, sort of that package-free solution, like that's what they do. The problem that they're dealing with, and the problem that a lot of these small stores are dealing with, is that they're just one place. So they're struggling because they have to buy small quantities of everything that they're selling. And so their markup has to be more. And because their markup is more, it creates a vicious cycle where not everybody can afford that food, right?
well, I think what they're doing also is they're using ugly food.
Okay,
And they're using rescue, right? And so, like, again, when we're looking at like how do we integrate solutions, right? The food that Shannon catches can be sold or can be donated, right? That's your model.
Okay, but I want to focus on this other part.
But the problem that we're looking at is the whole event, right? So if you want to go to recycled, like our cups, deliver zero packaging or whatever, then what you start at is, how many meals does your event sell in a year by all the food trucks that are there?
well, we have 244 vendors, 46 were food trucks.
Okay, so now we know the Deliver Zero model for those packaging containers is that it's a quarter or whatever, a use when they get washed. And there's a little bit of a different fee when they're, when they wash them instead of the food trucks or the entity site. So what you have to build in is all the food vendors. There's the Bluegrass Festival that has a statewide exemption where there are 20,000, whatever it is, people for the 5 days, whatever it is. Everything, every plate, every fork, every cup is machine washed on site, right? And so the food trucks get to Deliver Zero. They're not allowed to use eco products or anything, right? And so then what happens is, when we're calculating the fees for the vendors, we're showing them, okay, so you're gonna use these products, because we're going zero waste on it. Your cost average per plate, you pay for a fork, you pay for the ramekin, you pay for the box and all that, and built into your food cost price, it might be $1 for every order that you're getting from a food truck. That is the cost of the packaging materials. Now, if you're gonna use reusables, you're gonna change that cost from $1 to 50 to 75 cents or whatever it is, then it's actually cheaper. But you have to build it in where the packaging is used, is all there, and it might have an upfront cost that's realized as the food is being sold.
That was
Right.
already presented, and the business model was basically, we as a chamber are going to invest in this recycling. We are going to provide to the food trucks, so that way they also have like a less, may I say, like a more revenue, because they are not selling, buying the packaging. And it was no way that anyone can farmerize that. So that is something that I would love to present, because we have like 3 main festivals with almost 55,000 people with the 3, and no one was supporting that.
I'm so sorry to hear that, but I know that Arvada government provides silverware and packaging for their food truck events. And I know that about this blues festival that happens up north of here, I think it's not Lions. Do you know what it's called?
Just the.
Well, Planet
Bluegrass.
Bluegrass is the company that does, they run Planet Bluegrass, their location in Lyons, they also do the Telluride Bluegrass, which is a zero waste. I don't know if you've talked to anybody from Planet Bluegrass, because it is zero waste.
I guess the question is like, how do you fund it up front, so it's not coming out of their pocket? So do you get that for your food truck vendors, or?
Well, in Denver, they have a grant program right now, $600 through the sustainable, CASR, where if you convert to machine washables, you can get like a grant to buy a dishwasher, or the funding to buy the first round of plates, because the numbers will show that it's cheaper in the long haul to wash. I have a homeless meal that I work with every Sunday. We wash 100 to 150 dishes and forks every week, but we're saving thousands because of the cost versus disposal. So I do think that what they're doing with Bluegrass or whatever.
Yeah, but Planet Bluegrass, and I'm pretty sure that they use the same vendors. Like they work with STEM ciders, exclusively, and they work with these same food trucks over and over. So I don't know if they have kind of a deal that I would imagine they have, a set of, that they've established, and they get this guaranteed business. You can come to your ID to the Alliance.
And
We try
the other,
to open to everyone that will help, would be amazing.
so the other thing that I'll add to that is that a lot of food trucks are charged a percentage of their sales. So when you set up at a festival, you pay a fee plus a percentage of what you sell. Yours might not. However, there are a lot of models out there in the Denver metro region that do this to help cover costs of their fundraising, their waste services, all these other things. I think that the answer for you is to factor how many meals you're serving at your events. Calculate the cost for what it's gonna have the machine washables, and then show that the cost of the disposables is higher, and work with the food trucks to track their usage per one, so that every time they use a box for the food storage or the plate or whatever it is, that their quarter is ticked, right? And they're saving money because they're not spending 75 cents or $1 or whatever, right? But actually like mapping it out. I'm disappointed in Deliver Zero. I know them, that they wouldn't be working with you. I would be surprised if our cups, which is also now getting into plates and stuff, wouldn't be looking at that as well. It's a thing that I've talked about, like let's build a dishwashing truck to go to serve at there, so to wash all the dishes while they're eating and just keep rotating. But there's some other logistical things, like the amount of time that I have in my life to create a new project to run forward with. But the ideas are there, and there are examples of them working.
Yeah, my point was that governments should be supporting that kind of things and not going into the small food trucks that they are already struggling. So that's why I put the same example as, that they are, so they have already a business plan, everything is going well. Why don't we support those as a way to give an example to those that wants to get into the business? So we are going to have more of those stores as channels.
So that's what I'm doing, right? By this coursework and training them to go to convert to compost only, and then we're adding the tax credits for the donated food, and we're working on discounted products for the compostables, so that they can get set up and transition and have a more financial advantage to them. Have you guys had any grants like that? EcoCycle to help businesses?
So yeah, we're non-governmental, so we don't distribute grants at all. But yeah, I think we'd agree with you that it seems like it makes sense, and Boulder County does offer some really great rebates in a lot of areas. But yeah, that's frustrating to work with, and I think like Shannon was saying, there's a lot of power. There's an absence of governmental support in collective purchasing, if that's ever an option, but yeah.
Yeah, that makes more or less sense.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, so you probably know, so just in Lafayette, we have this tiny little reusables grant, and we only have 5,000, but basically if a business wants to replace a single-use item with a reusable item, the rebate will pay up to $1,000, 50% of the cost. But that's nice, but it's not huge. But, and I don't, there's another grant, which I've heard about, I don't know, maybe you know more about it, there's a circular economy grant that I don't know who administers that, but I wonder if that's a grant they can apply for to, do you know anything much about that?
Well, I was gonna ask you, Brian, like, I feel like coming out of, now that we have like the PRO for the, so the Producer Responsibility Organization, that's in charge of how all of this EPR stuff is gonna work. Now we have, yeah, this like circular action, we have all of this circular economy stuff that's suddenly in the air and like up for discussion, and I think that that kind of thing is a lot of what I predict is gonna kind of come down the pike in terms of being funded and being like, legitimately available to you. So I, yeah.
Yeah, I would agree with you, and I like the point that Shannon was bringing about collective purchase. Because to start with, the focus is gonna be on the infrastructure. We can't mandate that everybody compost and take it out of the landfill. We don't have the places to process it. So in the first years of enhanced producer responsibility, the grants and fundings are gonna go to upgrading existing facilities and creating new ones. And right now, I mean, today the EPA just announced $117 million in national funding. Part of that 119 million, 39 million is for a conglomerate of organizations to nationally reteach the composting infrastructure for households as a national goal, right? So the money is coming out there. Build Back Better, circular economies, enhanced producer responsibilities. Not all of it has been pooled yet, some of it has, right? And so EPR is definitely a great place. I know earlier this year I attended a grant seminar where the Green Latinos were funding $10,000 grants to help an organization actually fund writing a bigger grants. So we want to have a relationship with our commercial kitchen or some restaurants so that everything gets washed, and that it can be, you know, a new concept. There's a place in Fort Collins where you can rent a tub, dishes for $25, the whole kit for $10, right? The business concepts are out there. There's a veteran who has China, you know, nicer stuff that's rentable for catering companies as a business idea, right? So Shannon said, let's collect and purchase. And Eco Products is an example of a company that will be the sole vendor for an event. So that everybody has to go to these products, 100% certifiable, BPI, all that jazz. The outdoor festival that happened in Denver under the new mayoral administration, bringing his rich people, friends in and trying to host events downtown. They went with their company out of Chicago that had 100% recycled or compostable products, right? So that was, if you want to be a vendor at our events, Outdoor Fest, that is sustainable, you must buy sustainable products to be a vendor. So there's nothing in the regulations or the creativity that can't say, we are going to use this. Food trucks, as part of your sign up, you have to, you know, how many meals did you do last year? That's the baseline of what we're gonna fund for this Deliver Zero project, or this reusable, washable product. So that as part of their application fees, because the food truck has to buy those materials before they show up on site. So if I have the food truck and I gotta go spend $500, because I'm gonna serve 500 meals, I gotta have that, I gotta spend that money in advance. So there's no reason that I couldn't calculate that expense and know that there might even be a level of savings, because I went and we pooled our money together for your festival event. It's being done. That's how the bluegrass was done. You know, originally they had to get a grant, they had to create the thing, they have the stock and the relationship.
In the essence of time, we just have to be out here by 7:30, so just wanted to move on to a couple of last questions. What are some tips that you could share, day-to-day practices that we and individuals can do to make an impact? And if I hear from each one of you. You start, Shannon.
The biggest thing we need to do as a community is advocate for collective infrastructure. So single stream recycling is a good start, but single stream composting is something that our community needs in order to be able to collectivize the process. Because if you live in an apartment complex, you're not going to compost your own food. You're not going to have the capability of being able to get the food to where it needs to go to be composted. So we need to acknowledge the limitations that people in dense urban environments are dealing with, especially in marginalized and underserved communities. And we need to all advocate for that infrastructure to get put in place so they can take the load off of people and stop kind of shaming everybody. You know, like that's something that I've seen over the last forever, is that we've got this marketing campaign coming out of government and nonprofit where we're like, what can you do at home? And how can you fix the situation while we basically sit back and not do a damn thing to solve it on the back end? And we need to flip that script as a community and recognize that there's a hell of a lot we can be doing by pooling our resources and putting these systems in place. And I don't know, I just really hope that we can have more of that conversation.
That's literally exactly what I was going to say, Shannon. I think everyone who's heard me talk about anything will hear me come back to this. I'm obsessed with this message of we have had decades of like intentional, effective, very, very, financially backed campaigns to make us think that individually this is our fault, and individually the only way that we're going to move forward is by taking individual action. So like if you, again, I won't go into my whole like conspiracy board, but if you, just pay attention to who's funding these campaigns that have really changed the way we think, like Keep America Beautiful, right? Like the so-called Crying Indian campaign is the one I always talk about. It's like, it's this anti-littering campaign that says literally this is your fault, people start pollution, people can stop pollution. That's the tagline. And if you look into who Keep America Beautiful is, it's freaking Pepsi, it's Coca-Cola, it's all the people it's all the corporations rather who are making all the things that are littered. And that's insane in itself to think that they said, okay, we recognize that we make this stuff that is in the rivers, we recognize that that's us, rather than putting any money into cleaning it up or like making our stuff recyclable or being the ones who fund the recycling or any of that. We're going to create a campaign very specifically to make you think it's your individual fault so that nobody will ever collectively make the infrastructural changes that is needed to actually change our entire course of action and like what we're doing here. If the concept of the individual like the individual carbon footprint calculator, you can go and be like, how harmful am I when I take a shower because I need to, oh, I have to drive to work, and like, how harmful is that? That was literally created by BP, by British Petroleum. They funded that campaign to say like, oops, we just spilled all these billions of gallons of oil into the Gulf of Mexico, oops. How can we redirect the blame and make people think that it's on them to fix it rather than us, who obviously has to fix it? Okay, I'll stop, but I want, as an individual, like, the best thing you can do is understand that it's not your fault. Like, understand that you can lift this burden of individual guilt of climate change or the plastic, island floating in the ocean, like, whatever you need to do, understand that it's not your fault. Understand that there's so many people who are working on it already, and just tapping into that, I think, is, like, the single biggest takeaway I give, or I try to give to people, is, like, if we all are like timing our showers and like crying about our own impact on the planet, then we're just not gonna get to a place where like everyone, because also maybe I can make the choice to like save up for an EV, or I can make the choice to like bike to work. There are so many people who don't have there's so many people who don't have access to recycling right now. We can't tell them like, oh, if you only recycle, then you'll make a difference. Like, they don't even have that option. So yeah, building an infrastructure and a culture where every single person is set up for success rather than having to try to like change their whole life to like work upstream. The stream just needs to go in the right direction. And then we have the people power, we have the will, we have momentum. You don't have to think about it on an individual scale.
And I want to add to that too, that we also really need to start thinking about how we're having this discussion. So as somebody that struggles with disabilities, I struggle in the kitchen, I'm food insecure. I've got resources, I've got a car, I can get to the grocery store, but I will forget food on the fire and set fire to my house. I will constantly throw away food because I forget that it's not in the fridge. Like, these things happen to me all the time. I had a severe traumatic brain injury in the 90s, and it impacts every part of my life. It is not fair for us as a society, as government institutions, as nonprofit institutions that are producing this messaging. It's not fair of us to assume that every American has the capacity to do this. We really need to start adjusting how we're having this conversation, but this conversation is ableist as hell. If we're going to make a difference in how people perceive this, we've got to go look at it through a different lens. And we've really got to focus on the fact that, hey, we're increasingly dealing with an America that is not able individually to handle these things. And we have to start thinking larger. We have to start looking at what processes and what tools are available at the industrial level, above where we on the street normally see. Like, we normally think restaurant, we think like, Taco Bell, right? It's a, restaurant, commercial kitchen. But I'm talking about large scale processing capacity, freeze dryers that can handle tons per hour, equipment that's designed for creating long-term stability in our food system, in our recycling system, in our processing capability. Everything that we're talking about is building capacity. And a big part of the reason why we need to build capacity is because we're stepping away from this BS model of it's all on everybody. And we're really looking at the fact that we do have the technology at scale to deal with these processes. We do have the ability logistically at scale to deal with these processes. And the more we can scale up to the point where we're actually meeting the need, the more we're taking it off the shoulders of those of us who can't shoulder it. You know?
So individually, first I want to say thank you for your service, right? Individually, the thing that we get to do now is not hold guilt, but seeing the excitement of where we're going. America's not there yet, right? But Colorado is converting the system, and we're creating it and building it in such a way that, like Oregon and California, we're leading the way. And like, my grandparents were born in the Depression. They didn't throw anything away. Compost, recycle, everything. That was natural. I was raised that way, right? But we've had a couple of generations where the system changed away from collective societal responsibility to take care of the lands, right? When we go and we listen to our ancestors in the indigenous communities whose lands we're living in now, right? We understand that relationship to the earth, and we understand the responsibilities that we have collectively, right? So I will still put my eggshells in the freezer till the people who live in houses have recycling day in my neighborhood. So while I'm on my way to the gym, I can dump it in at 6 o'clock in the morning and go work out. But that's my choice, right? I get to do that because I passed a law that says that I have to have a compost pit in my apartment complex, but it hasn't gotten in there yet, right? So statewide in Colorado, we get to tell people that the changes are coming, that the work that we've been doing for our lifetimes is real, and that within our lifetimes, within the next decade, we're gonna look back and be like, wow. But we have to understand how to do it, right? So we understand why your system didn't work when you tried to make it happen. And we gotta say collectively, no, this is how we're doing it, and let's make it happen. So that's where I'm.
Here's another really good point too. It's like, we don't have to do this alone. If anybody wants to go down to city council and start snapping fingers and start talking and do your 30-second or your 3-minute public comment, go down in a posse. Set up a meetup group. Make this a thing. Do potlucks in your community. Start having these conversations around food. I guess whatever it takes. But I'm saying, like really connect with the people that you care about the things you care about. If we care about these subjects, talk to my friends. I won't shut up about this stuff.
I'm sure you're all
I'm not going to be one of those people that's going to live a life of quiet desperation while the world's on fire.
Right. And the other thing is, like, we're in harvest season, so get involved, right? If you want to do something individually, like, go help those farms that are trying, and Boulder's full of them.
And legislative season.
And legislative session is coming right around the corner, right? We're having a meeting here in this building on Friday to, continue the work and talking about what next year's mandates are for the legislation. And my Buddy's here, I'm excited to see him. You know, the next thing that we're working on is battery recycling. Household batteries, the A's, the C's, the 9 volts. But like the conversation about where we go to recycle our EV batteries. Because right now, lead acid gasoline car battery, you can't buy a new one without paying the fee for not bringing the old one back. You get your money back when you bring the old battery in, right? But we're not there with EVs yet. So but we're moving. We are running.
As long as you got people like these guys paying attention.
We are too. Yeah.
Well, with 5 minutes left, do we have any burning questions? We'll take one or two.
I have one small one. So with the styrofoam ban, is the state doing something to not allow retailers to sell it to, like, the restaurants can't sell it to the customers, right? But can you stop the distribution coming into the state?
Not yet. It's really gonna phase into eco-modulation as parts of the enhanced producer responsibility. I see your head nodding. Unfortunately, in order to get the laws passed that say these groups of people can't use it, we have to negotiate at the table. And so what we can't do is we can't tell companies that they're not allowed to do business. At least we weren't allowed to tell companies that they can't do business in the States. But with the creation of enhanced producer responsibility, there's a thing called the Producer Responsibility Organization. And if you do X amount of sales in the state of Colorado, you must participate in this organization. You must calculate your products and how much you bring in, or you're not allowed to do business in the state of Colorado. And that includes Amazon, right? So if I can't go to the restaurant depot because they phased out styrofoam and they got a whole eco product section shelving and they're like, use it all together, right? And you decide to go and get on Amazon and order some hefty styrofoam plates. Well, if you're a restaurant, until we report you, then they're gonna do that thing, right? But the whole point of the process is we can say you can't use it, but it's still, safe to poison your family at home. So that's the law. That's really what the law basically boils down to. And it's a complaint basis. So some of us who are really passionate, we file a lot of complaints.
I followed a lot.
Yeah, so but the good news is that with eco-modulation, the answer in EPR is that the harder to recycle your product is, the more you pay for introducing it into the state boundaries.
Okay.
So phasing it out, and then again with the composting infrastructure, they're not paying for compost hauling, they're paying for the compostable products. And they said, we only want to know what the non-compostable products that are lookalikes are. And we're all saying, no, you need to create a list of what the contaminants are, so that every time there's a black plastic fork contaminating the soil, you know that black plastic forks have to be eliminated from the streams by eco-modulation and phasing them out because they're contaminating our compost streams. And you do that by charging so much more for those products because they're causing a problem in the system, that it's no longer viable to sell black plastic forks made of oil and gas in the state of Colorado.
Makes sense, okay, thanks.
Did I explain that well?
I was just gonna add that we're trying to get, so polystyrene, like the way that it's written now, as I understand it, is that it's specific to be expanded. So like what you would think of as styrofoam, or like what you would recognize, but then there's this whole other category, number 6, which is still polystyrene, it's just not expanded, so like a solo cup or like a condiment cup. So we're trying really hard to like, if we're passing laws about polystyrene, let's bring all the polystyrene into it, because it's not just the foaminess that makes it problematic, it's the resin itself.
Right.
So that's just another like hopeful thing.
Because whether it's like a takeout container or a cup that's a 6, you can't recycle.
Right,
Well,
that's exactly like this.
False. You can recycle it. But it has to be single stream, not single stream, specific, hard to recycle items, right? So your number 6s have to be bunched together at a drop-off charm, or at your Target where you're only putting the number 6s in, right? So they are recyclable in the state of Colorado. They are being recycled when they're collected in quantities. I'm gonna close it with this thought. it's election season coming up, and everybody's got corrugated plastic yard signs in your yard. I started a program with some Democrats in the city of County of Denver. I was running a mayoral race, and my candidate who used paper recyclable yard signs instead of corrugated plastic tasked me to figure out how, as part of my job duties, to get do some capture. We captured 2 gaylords, which are the big pallets with big boxes around them, full of corrugated yard plastics, got them to direct polymers in Denver, Colorado, where they were shredded and blended. People say, you can't recycle those. Well, you can, okay? So I got excited and I lost the focus on that. But they can be, they're being phased out, right? And that's again with the teaching and the creation of new systems. So we're contaminating and then we're getting rid of it because it's hard to have. Oh, I know what it was, and I'm sorry. PFAS, polyper and polyfluorochlorides. So there's just an article, Washington Post, 3,000 plus chemicals coming out of our plastic foods into our food, into our bodies and bioaccumulating, right? This is just written in the last 48 hours, the studies report and the thing. We have some amazing elected officials who are advocating for the health and safety of their grandchildren, of their children. And they hear us when we say these food packaging, it might not be that they're hard to recycle and hard to contaminate. It might actually be, well, they're poisoning us. And that's how we get them out.
Right. Yeah, that's the thing with plastics is like you can get people on board who don't care about plastics in the ocean because they care about poisoning their kids. And like that's we do too.
Yeah.
We care about that.
Well, I just want to give them all a round of applause. Thank you so much. I know that I have 10 more questions, but we can only get to so much, and I really appreciate your time and your input and feedback around these issues in Colorado. And keep doing such a great job out there, advocating and working day to day just to make a difference. So we really appreciate it.
Well, you too, Amber. You're out there with us.
I'm sure all of you
Different
are.
capacity, yeah. Well, if you want to connect with them briefly, they're locking the doors at 7:45, and we got to have all the tables stood up. So.
Okay.
Thank you so much
This was
again.
amazing.
Yeah.
We just need more time.
Yeah, no,
I feel like we just touched the surface.
Yeah, we did.
I thought you were.
It looks like some home faces. So, board meetings. I'm assuming these are behind my Zoom.
They're gonna be.
We'll also take back his name badges.
Are you a what?
She just had to walk out with the up in there, so I just
I don't know how this room is set up.
Yeah, it was like,
I have 2 questions for you, maybe, whatever.
Hold on.
Those need to chairs.